Ladies and gentlemen, up next, a conversation with Director Scott Turner and Administrator Andrew Wheeler. Please join me in welcoming from Fox News, Lawrence Jones.
How y'all doing, CPAC? Good, good. Thank y'all for joining us for an important conversation. Gentlemen, I've been going across the country with Fox News, talking with minority communities, urban communities that need help. And I've been telling them that with the Trump administration, the cavalry is coming, that they care about jobs. If you're American, you want to work, we're going to put you back to work, businesses. Why should the people out here care about this issue? Starting with you, Scott.
And thank you, Lawrence, and I'm so happy to be here with you all at CPAC. You know, the president has set forth policies that give the people of America inside of distressed communities an opportunity to start businesses, to build new homes, you know, to be self-sustaining, to be self-governing, and fulfill the American dream, and really to fulfill their God-given potential. I have the honor of stewarding the White House Opportunity and Revitalization Council, which works inside of our nation's opportunity zones. And, you know, opportunity zones bring stakeholders together inside of communities that haven't seen investment in decades. You're talking about elected officials, community leaders, faith leaders, education leaders, with developers and entrepreneurs sitting at the same table at the same time, having a hard conversation. You know, what's the pain of this community? You know, why is this community, you know, vacated and blight? And also, what's the promise here? You know, what's the potential of the community? And to see all of these people coming together to bring viable solutions, job creation, new businesses, new
and Scott,
homes.
They're willing to listen to you. This is not a partisan issue.
No.
You got everybody involved with
Yes. And the good thing about opportunity zones, you know, everyone, I've learned doing this job. I've been to almost 60 cities in the last 11 months. And poverty has no color. Poverty has no party. It doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat. Poverty affects our country. It's systemic. It affects all of us indirectly or directly. And so when you look at poverty, say our goal and our vision is the eradication of poverty to help people to rise up. See, when you're in poverty, you don't care about party. But the good thing about revitalization, that means to bring new life. Revitalization doesn't have a party. It starts inside the heart of every man and every woman. So I'm proud to steward this initiative, you know, in opportunity zones for our country.
Administrator, we hear about it, about the regulations that were in these communities that was stopping the growth from the EPA. How bad was it?
We had a lot of regulations that were stopping growth around the country. And the important thing about these opportunity zones is going in with some federal money under our Brownfields program and cleaning up these communities and then attracting private sector dollars into these communities. President Trump really cares about the forgotten Americans of this country. And these opportunity zones are in the inner cities and they're in rural communities. And what we've done over the last 3 years is invest in these communities. And when we invest a little bit of money from the federal government to clean up these sites, the private sector then comes in and they invest more money. And we're seeing, after we've cleaned up a site, the local tax revenue goes up 27 to $98 million. We've created, there's over 155,000 jobs in these communities by cleaning up these brownfield sites in the opportunity zones. But the regulations under President Trump, we have deregulated. We have taken away 51 regulations, saving the American public $6.5 billion just from EPA alone.
That's amazing. Administrator, I know this audience, and when they hear about the federal government coming in, giving out money, how can you confidently tell them that the money is not going to be abused or wasted?
We watch very carefully how the money is being spent, but there are these old industrial sites around the country. They're in the inner cities. They're also in rural communities that need to be cleaned up. They have contamination. Some of the companies that did this maybe 100 years ago are no longer in existence. But we don't want these blighted city blocks. We don't want these blighted buildings where there's nothing occurring. We want them cleaned up. So we go in and we make sure that the people who are hired to clean them up are doing it under the environmental standards that we have, and then those properties can then be redeveloped and repurposed. And we're seeing new development come into these communities, and it's just, it's incredible. And it's not just the inner cities, but it's also the rural areas. We listed a new Superfund site last year in Minden, West Virginia. Minden has about 650 people in it. It was a site of a lot of mining 50, 75 years ago. That city has been decimated. It's a third of what it was. And they now have some new hope that we're going to be able to help clean up the waste that they had in their city and maybe attract some new jobs.
Scott, that's amazing, by the way. Scott, before you joined the White House, you were a state representative, you're a pro football player, and you're a businessman. And when I go out in the community, the equalizer is the green. Everybody cares about the money. So what are you doing with the opportunity zones as it relates to entrepreneurship? Because there's a lot of people where I come from that are business people. They just don't know what to do.
Right. And that's a great question, Lawrence. And, when you look at opportunity zones, the spirit of this law, and this came about because of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act in 2017. The spirit of opportunity zones is both economic development and social impact. And so when you look at opportunity zones and you look at the development that's going on, there's real estate development, but there's also operating businesses, which is just as important, because we know in America, small to medium businesses, that drives our economy, and that's the American way. And so, you're talking about, like in Cleveland, Ohio, there's a new bakery that's coming online in the opportunity zone, right? A first-time business owner that has, private capital and public investment coming together to start a new business in the Tremont area of Cleveland, Ohio. And along that, they're building workforce housing and retail shops. So that's just one example of entrepreneurship. The president is very driven and very supportive, if you will, from his background and also from his heart about entrepreneurship and people starting and owning businesses. And so that is a huge driver. Just yesterday at the White House, we had nearly 150 black entrepreneurs and business owners at the White House for a summit to talk about entrepreneurship. What policies are helping you? What's working? What do we need to do better? Because we're not just about checking the box. There's been a lot of programs in America, right? But this is an initiative. The Opportunity Zone deal is long-term sustainability. And so when people come to the White House, we want to hear, what's working for you? Yeah. What can we do better? How can we help you to be successful in your business, to take care of your family, to be an impact in your community? Because long after all of us are gone, the vision is that it'll have a generational impact in our country. And that's why I'm here. That's why we're all here, right? Yes. And so that's the heart of it. And entrepreneurship is a big driver of that. You give someone who has a skill set, like someone who can cut hair, or maybe a lady who's a beautician, or even somebody that's good with their hands and they want to be a plumber or a welder. And we build, career and technical centers to teach the trades, to teach somebody how to draw blood, to teach cosmetology, to teach somebody how to be a fireman, right? And then they go out and they have an honest job and a great living, and then they might even start a business that could ignite something in their community. It may even ignite, look, conversations around the kitchen table are changing.
That's right.
When you start talking about, I know I can own this. I came from a broken home, right? And when you get these young people who are inside of the inner cities and now they start talking, you know what? I'm good with my hands. You know what? Maybe I can start a business one day. Those conversations around the table are changing. Right. And when they start changing, then generations start changing. And so, and I want to let Administrator Wheeler talk, but entrepreneurship is not only driving our economy, but it is literally changing families and futures and generations. And that's something that we as a country and as people together need to continue to drive and to pray for and to ignite and to invest in, because we'll see a greater America when that happens.
Yeah. Absolutely.
This is an anti-socialism conference, but there has to be an alternative, Administrator, to the people that want socialism. And what Scott is saying is that the government is not saying, I'm gonna give you this. You're not just giving grants away.
No.
You're making sure people have the education that have started, and they're partnering with the local businesses in the community. Talk a little bit about that.
Yes, we are. And one of the other programs we have at EPA is under our Clean Air Act. And if a local community, particularly if the cities, are in non-attainment for the clean air standards, it's hard to attract new businesses into those communities. So we are now working more proactively with cities all over the country to get them from non-attainment on the air standards to attainment. And under President Trump's leadership, we have moved 38 communities from non-attainment to attainment over the last 3 years. Right. And that is lifting a lot of the regulatory burdens on our cities so that they can attract new businesses, so they can bring in new, when a business looks to see where they want to settle or start a new facility, they look to see whether or not the community is in attainment with the environmental standards. So by helping these communities attain these standards, it's helping attract new businesses into our cities, in particular our inner cities. But the one thing I just want to make sure everybody here knows and understands is our environment is cleaner today than it has ever been. EPA is 50 years old this year. Our air pollution is 74% lower than it was in 1970.
Wow.
74%. We measure 6 criteria air pollutants. We've been measuring them for 50 years, and all 6 have gone down under President Trump's leadership. Our air is cleaner today. Our water is cleaner today. In 1970, 40% of the water systems failed to meet EPA standards. Today, over 92% of the water systems meet the standards every single day, and we're working with the other communities that occasionally have a problem with their water system.
So,
to make sure that we provide clean water to every American, regardless of their zip code and where they live.
Come on.
Everybody deserves clean air and clean water.
So, Administrator, I have to ask you because, being in this media business, you don't hear.
I've noticed that.
Right.
Yeah. So tell me, what data do they have that you don't have? And you're the EPA Administrator.
Hey, you know what, Administrator, can I say something right quick?
Absolutely.
Go for it, Scott.
Is that all right? If we go, Administrator Wheeler is doing a tremendous job at the EPA. When you think about the EPA, right, who thinks about the EPA, literally?
I do.
I know you do. But people need to understand that this is a business-minded leader and a business-minded administration. When you drive by brownfields, when you drive by blighted communities, you drive by there, you take all of that for granted. What he sees is opportunity, because developers do not want to develop in a place that is dirty, that has contamination. And so what he is doing is literally clearing the way for development to come inside of these communities that have not seen development in a long time, because it's clean, right? It's cleaned up, and so it is very important, right?
But
about what he's doing.
I do want to point out, I want to make sure everything is cleaned up for more development and for people to have jobs and opportunities, but we also care about the environment. I'm an Eagle Scout. I still go hiking. I still go camping. And I want to make sure that the environment is safe and preserved for future generations.
Thank you, sir. That's awesome.
This is not an EPA Secretary Administrator that sits behind a desk. He's been on the road with Scott Turner, making sure, looking at the community, seeing what's going on, and clearing the way, getting big government out of the way, checking them so these businesses can come back to the community. Another crucial part, Scott, is education, right? Yeah. We want people to have jobs, we want entrepreneurship, but we want quality businesses. So what you guys have been doing to make sure that these people are ready to go out there, be in the workforce, and then be job creators?
That's a good question. And I'm sorry for interrupting you, bro.
No, go right ahead. I'd rather listen to you speak.
We're good friends, and he's doing a tremendous job. So, it's one thing to have jobs to be created, but you have to train the people to take the jobs. And so workforce development is a tremendous and a very important initiative of the administration. And Ivanka Trump is leading that effort when it comes to workforce and workforce training. And so, on the Opportunity and Revitalization Council, there's 14 federal agencies and 3 state and regional partners. And we have different pillars inside of the council, from entrepreneurship to economic development to safe neighborhoods and to labor and education, workforce training. And so that is a tremendous and a big priority to make sure that people are trained for the 21st century workforce. Because if you look at the young people today in the high schools and the middle schools and even those in the colleges and universities, that's the generation of leaders and workforce that's coming. And so we have to do our job, our best job, the administrator, myself, and you, Lawrence, and others, to make sure they're ready to take that baton of leadership and trained up in the right way. So education is very important. And listen, y'all, we've had a deal in our country where we're encouraging young people and saying you have to go to a 4-year college. Well, listen, all young people are not going to go to a 4-year college, but it doesn't mean that they're not going to be successful. Yeah. And so we need to change that narrative and change those conversations, because some young people become discouraged.
That's right.
And thinking, well, I'm not college material, or I don't want to go to college, but I still want to be successful. We need to let them know you absolutely can be successful and have a prosperous life, if you don't go to college. So I'm going to let the administrator answer.
I'm going to interrupt you now. We're doing that at EPA as well. Right now we're looking to hire new risk assessors, recent college graduates in our North Carolina facility. So if you're a recent college student, you're from North Carolina, we're looking to hire new risk assessors to help us relocate in Research Triangle Park. At the same time, we are training across the country people to go into the water management systems jobs. This is for Public Water Works. The Public Water Works workers today, 40 to 50% of them are eligible to retire. We're going to have a shortage in that area. So we're trying to get out there, and you don't necessarily have to have a college education to work for a water supply company and that side. There's jobs across the whole spectrum.
That's great.
So, but 40 to 50% of those people are eligible to retire today. So we have to make sure that we have people trained to run our water systems, our public water, drinking water, sewer water systems going into the future, to make sure that we can ensure clean, safe drinking water for all Americans.
So Administrator, you are the EPA administrator, and what is your message to conservatives? Because, I'm a conservative, but I believe that God entrusted us to be good stewards of the earth. So
absolutely.
What is your message to the conservatives out here about our environment and the state of our environment?
As I said, our environment is the cleanest it's ever been since we've been measuring it for the last 50 years. 74% reduction, and you don't hear that in most news organizations or in the newspapers. 74% reduction in air pollution over the last 50 years. But at the same time, what we're trying to do at EPA is make things more transparent. We're working on cost-benefit regulation, so we can explain to the American public what are the costs and the benefits of all of our regulations. People have a right to know what they're paying for. Yeah. If they're paying for a regulation, you need to know what the benefit is of that regulation. So we're going to require it going forward for all of our regulations. Today, we are going live with a new database. This is President Trump's idea, where all of our EPA guidance documents will be publicly accessible to the public. So you can go on our website and see our guidance documents for the first time ever. We are all about transparency. We're all about making sure, and the third area that I want to just highlight real fast is our science transparency regulation. I've gotten beat up on this by everybody in the media. What we're trying to do is make sure that if we use a scientific study to justify a regulation, that scientific study has to be made available to the public, so that you know how we're making our decisions. And I think if we do that, that clears up a lot of the mystery and confusion about the EPA policies and how we regulate. And that will provide more transparency, and the American public can see what their taxpayer dollars are buying, because it's not government money. It's money from the taxpayer.
That's great.
Scott, I opened this up by saying that when I go to Baltimore, Chicago, Philly, I told them in the community that the cavalry is coming, that the White House cares about them. Tell me some of the success stories from your work with these opportunity zones.
Okay, well, I only have 1 minute and 9 seconds left. I will tell you to go to opportunityzones.gov. That's the website. It is a tremendous portal to teach you about opportunity zones, what they are, the activity of the council, some of the things that we've learned along the way, and how you can get involved in opportunity zones. I told you about the new business in Cleveland, the new bakery. But I think one that really tugs at my heart is in Liberty City, Miami. Secretary Carson and I were there because developers there took one of the toughest parts of this city and a housing project and are redeveloping into multifamily housing. And we saw the first resident to move into her new apartment, the nicest apartment she said she's ever had in her life. But there's 2 young men there from that neighborhood that the developer taught how to be window and door installers.
Wow.
And during that press conference, one of those young men tapped that window and said, I put this window in here.
Wow.
We don't want to be on the streets. We don't want to be on the corner. And so now he has a life skill because of Opportunity Zone.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, the administrator, the director, thank you so much for being here. Last thing I'll say is this. Revitalization is a conservative issue. Yeah. If we are not there, we open the door for socialism to take place. There is an entire community that are crying for help, and the White House is saying, send me, send me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Awesome.